Hello, everyone. My name is John Shomo, and today I'm going to walk you through a personal ethical dilemma that I had during my internship at a staffing company. I work in the healthcare IT department for contract consultants, and our Harrisonburg office is a bit unusual compared to most. It's made up of entirely of interns like me, along with our one full-time manager, but no other permanent staff. This creates a very peer-centric culture, which is terrific for learning, but it can also make it a great deal more difficult to navigate some of the tricky ethical dilemmas. A few months ago, I came down with something that didn't sit well with me. One of the other interns, let's just refer to him as Zach, was exaggerating performance numbers. To put things kind of into perspective for you, as interns, we're not only getting paid hourly, but also based on productivity, specifically how many DBAs, pipelines, SUPs or SUPs, and task calls that we accomplish throughout our day and our week. Those numbers directly impact our pay. So I noticed Zach was recording subs and pipelines that I knew did not exactly happen, or at least were overestimated to qualify as more than they actually were. So whenever I would casually inquire about it, he would just laugh and essentially say something to the effect of, "You got to work the system to get paid. Everyone does it." So just like the image I have to my left, this was Zach's mindset through the whole situation. He acted like it was nothing, but it actually gave me a great deal of shock. So this put me in a tough spot, as I didn't want to come off as the office informant, but I also wasn't all right with what Zach was doing at all. From here, I had to determine whether to address it with management or ignore the situation. In order to determine how I should respond to this ongoing situation, I applied the ethical theories that we've learned from this class.
Let's start by using deontology to find a solution. Deontology is the ethical theory that has a main focus around duties, such as do not kill or do not steal, and was created and proposed by Immanuel Kant. The picture above shows rules and regulations, which are the largest focus of deontology. This theory does not focus on the consequences, but rather whether the action itself was ethical and morally right. A key concept of deontology is the categorical imperative, which states that duties apply universally with no exception to anyone. So if I were to use that here, I would say, what if all the people in our office padded their numbers just to get paid more? Then the incentive system would totally break down. Nobody would be justly rewarded, and management would never be able to trust the numbers, so good interns would unjustly be penalized. So from a deontological point of view, the maxim, it's okay to pad your numbers to get paid more, obviously cannot be universalized. So Kant also emphasized respecting others as ends in themselves and not as a means to achieving something. Zach is using the company's trust and the reporting system as means to his benefit without considering how his actions would affect others. That is ethically wrong. So from this viewpoint, as difficult as it is, I owe it to myself to uphold honesty and fairness and should do so accordingly.
So then we move to utilitarianism, which focuses directly on the consequences of the actions. Utilitarianism, the theory created by Jeremy Bentham, says that actions can only be seen as morally acceptable if it creates the most happiness possible for the most people. As you can see above on this slide, just as we discussed in class, the train signalman would be using utilitarian ideals to turn the train to hit the one individual rather than hit the five. This image shows how utilitarianism focuses on benefiting the maximum number of people rather than the smallest amount, with a dark undertone. When we try to apply utilitarianism, however, to this particular situation, we can see how Zach's actions are bringing him happiness in the form of monetary gain. However, it is hurting the rest of the sales team. The metric numbers that Zach is putting in is making the rest of the sales team look like their performance is low compared to his, which could affect the rest of the team's performance reviews, including my own. So this leads to the rest of the team, including myself, becoming unhappy with their own performance, as well as ruining management's perception of us. So therefore, Zach's actions are arrogant and only making him happy, causing unhappiness for the rest of the team. If I don't say anything, it's possible that the entire sales team minus Zach will be negatively affected. So if I look at this from a utilitarian perspective, the only ethical thing to do is to do something that prevents harm and produces the best overall outcome for the largest number of individuals.
Next, we can look at how virtue ethics can be applied to this scenario. Virtue ethics is an ethical theory that was created by Aristotle. While deontology and utilitarianism focus more on the rules or the consequences, virtue ethics focuses more around the character aspect. Virtue ethics focuses more on how someone utilizes virtues in their actions, such as honesty, generosity, bravery, and many more. In the images on the left-hand and right-hand side of this slide, there are many more examples of virtues. Virtue ethics can easily be applied to help figure out what choice to make, because ignoring the situation and letting it go would be incredibly dishonest and against a key virtue of mine. It also really is challenging going to superior and reporting a fellow coworker, especially in an office only filled with my peers, and it takes a lot of courage to do so. Courage is another key virtue of mine, so going forward will align with virtue ethics' key focus even further. Aristotle also discusses the concept of the golden mean, which is essentially the middle ground between two extremes. On the picture at the top of this slide, you can see how the golden mean is represented. Both extremes in the situation would be blowing things totally out of proportion, as well as being cowardly and ignoring the situation completely. Aristotle would argue that by using virtue ethics, I must find a middle ground in between that reflects the virtues that I hold close. The next theory to look at is egoism. Egoism, as you can guess through the word ego, focuses more on the individual's best interest only when acting on a decision. The photo I included above in this presentation says focus on yourself, not others, which is exactly what egoism would want me to do in this situation. Egoism says to only serve your best interest, whether that be altruistically, meaning to be selfless, or to be selfish and only care for oneself no matter the consequences. In any regard, my personal best interest is all that matters according to egoism. In this specific scenario, just how I explained earlier, ignoring Zach's misconduct could eventually backfire on me and hurt me. Eventually, if Zach continues to inflate the metrics that he's putting in, my metrics will look poor in comparison as well. Therefore, ignoring the situation would not be serving my best interest in the long run. Thinking just in terms of self-preservation, following egoism's focus, I need to not ignore the situation and document everything I hear and or see. Egoism says that I need to clarify what I've seen to my manager and report this behavior before it backfires. The last ethical theory that I used to come up with a solution is the ethics of care. The ethics of care theory was established by Carol Gilligan, which looks more at emotional responsibility as well as relationships. The ethics of care is considered a theory that focuses more around human traits rather than feminine versus masculine traits, while also focusing on empathy, communication, as well as building and maintaining the relationships with those around us. In this context, I'm not just solely a bystander, but a person that is involved in a group of close-knit interns. We all look out for each other and work as a team, as well as individually. We all have to rely on each other as a sales team and not just pursue sales individualistically. If looking at Gilligan's ethics of care, the solution shouldn't focus on just calling Zach out, but about maintaining the relationship with Zach by having an open and empathetic conversation. It's entirely possible that Zach feels an external pressure to just perform better than he has, or maybe he has something going on at home with his family that he might just need extra money for. Whatever the situation may be, I'm to assume that he doesn't understand the ethical implications of his actions and how it is hurting those that are close to him. Instead of just going to management and potentially ruining his career as well as our friendship, I should talk to him privately. This is a chance to not accuse Zach, but express my concerns and give him the chance to be completely open and honest with me. This way, I can understand his situation better and learn how to best help him go forward. By doing this, I can honor the relationship that we have in the workplace, as well as honor the community that we have established as a team. What did I end up doing? After weighing everything and thinking through every ethical standpoint, I decided not to approach my manager directly. Instead, I pulled Zach aside and talked to him in person. I let him know that I wasn't trying to be confrontational or make it personal. I just said I saw some of his numbers didn't seem to match what I was seeing during the day. I wasn't aggressive about it, just truthful. Zach didn't deny it. He kind of shrugged that away again and said he just didn't want to fall behind the leaderboard or lose a bonus. But after having that conversation with him, his reported metrics then sounded a lot more rational. To my mind, this was the perfect compromise. It enabled me to stand on what I think is more without necessarily escalating it right away. However, the ethical analysis provided me with a better line. If it continued to happen, or if others were to do it as well, I would have to escalate to management because I would have no justification at that time. From the deontological perspective, I had a duty to act, period. Filing bogus metrics is cheating, and if I did nothing, I'd be indirectly enabling it. Utilitarianism had shown that allowing for fraud for short-term gain would end up causing more harm in the long run. Broken trust, unfair wages, and possibly tainted reputations if ever discovered by management. Egoism also made me aware that allowing this action could one day come across my own desk. If the system proved itself to be unreliable, everyone's dependability would be put into question, including my own. Care ethics was probably the most important paradigm where how I was handling the problem was at stake. Since our office is so internship driven and founded on personal relationships, I knew going at management right away could cause more alienation than repair. That wasn't a cue to simply brush it off, but that I handled it in a way where later on change could be an option versus burning bridges. In the end, I made a choice that was a delicate balance of both principle and strategy, one that obeyed values without being hysterical or flippant. Thank you everyone for listening to me today.